Namaste. Welcome to the beginning of another live Sangha. I hope you feel welcome here because you certainly are. As we await our first guests to arrive, allow me to do a little invocation to the Gayatri Mantra. If you know it, you're welcome to join along with me. Om Bhuvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om. Thank you. And allow me to set the intention for this space as being an all-inclusive environment, open to everyone, regardless of background, identity, orientation, belief system, or any other thing on the surface which might appear to divide us. I hope that we come together as fellow students of life to uplift each other, relate in one another's experiences, and share positive sentiments. I know there's a lot of suffering in the world right now, and I think the number one thing we all need is to be a little more understood ourselves, and I offer the space to you to be able to express yourself and confide in the expression of others, and in the process learn more about ourselves. Namaste, dear Mariham. Namaste, Angela. Welcome. I trust that you are as well as you can be in this moment, despite whatever circumstances you might be experiencing. Know that you are not alone. You are loved and you are love. This too shall pass. Having a source which is infinite means that it can never be expressed all at once. I believe this is why there are so many different expressions of truth. Considering all humans, that's about 8 billion as of present. And each of us are valid in our unique experiences. Let us continue to find common ground. Namaste, Michelle. Namaste, dear Grey Gargi. I'm happy you like the sign. Namaste, dear Sky Guardian. Hello, dear Sheila. Welcome, everyone. You all are so early. I get to ask you all my question of the day. If you're interested in exploring it with me, today I'm wondering, what fascinates you about outer space? About the stars, the moon, the sun, the galaxy, the black holes, the cosmos. I would love to explore that together. Welcome, Sikabelli. Hello, Cinti Berry. Hello, dear Sarah. You share the vastness of it fascinates you. I love that. Me too. Dear Sheila, you are fascinated by how expansive it is. But you had written, perhaps as a typo, expensive. If you were to tally up the price of everything in the universe, what would it cost? Would it be trillions of trillions of trillions of trillions of dollars? Or would it be free? Because it's priceless. SVG. You share that what fascinates you is how close it feels, yet how far it looks. I like that. And thank you, dear Babblefishy, for blessing our Sangha with a trio of roses. One for love to be given, another for love to be received, and a third for love itself. Dear Gregorji, you are fascinated perhaps by its relativity to inner space. I like that. There are many dualities we could make. Dear Thick Eater, you share that it's hard to imagine, which is cool, yes. Trying to comprehend even the vastness of our planet, and we run into trouble. Let alone all of the other planets, stars, and galaxies, and perhaps universes too. And good evening, blue-winged monkey. Dear Spy, you point out how none of it could ever be truly explored in a state untouched by people. Wherever we go, we leave our mark, don't we? Sorry. Almost lost my voice there. We leave an impression. Observing is not merely a passive phenomenon. What we bring our attention to, we also bring energy with that. Dear Angela, you are fascinated by the vastness, the darkness, as well as curiosity and the desire to know what lies beyond. How beautifully spoken, dear Angela, and you speak for the curiosity and wonder within us all. Dear Ash, you ask, why was the universe created? What created the Big Bang? And for the Big Bang to happen, if aliens exist? What profound questions that will keep you up at night if you think too hard about them. We'll put a pin in that and continue to explore the cosmic mystery of life existing in this universe at all. That sounds lovely, dear Mariham. That is a kind of outer space, isn't it? A park full of oranges, trees, and with flowers. If we consider our inner space to be our emotional and mental body, then everything outside of that is outer space, isn't it? I'm very grateful for your presence, dear Leah. I love that, Sky Guardian. Melissa, you share that you're very sick with something even more worse than bronchitis, so please send good energy your way to get better, of course. Thank you for being here. Thank you for deciding that you want to heal. It's something we take for granted, the will to live. Very precious, and I know that with that will come the ability to make the most use out of your dear life and allow yourself to feel this way, even if you're not 100% physically, be 100% spiritually, and see this moment as a time for discovering parts of ourselves which might have been quiet while we dealt with the hustle and bustle, the busyness of daily life. Dear Cody Jane, you are fascinated by the idea that black holes might be the beginnings of new universes. That is very fascinating indeed. I share that with you. I'm happy you enjoy the background, dear Anna. Hello, dearest of Assads. Hello, dear Sir Simon says. Oh, emoji for each color in the rainbow. Is this how I shall address you? Magical Tarot. You wonder if I think about aliens. You share that you do a lot. I think it's easy to be fascinated by the life that may be all around this universe. Personally, I am so fascinated even by the life that exists on this planet, and I'm very grateful to be here as a human amongst fellow humans and animals, plants, fungi, and microbes. And I'm still learning how to make sense of this ecosystem, learning how to be human. I'll leave my fascination of aliens for a time in which I become a better human. And I'm still learning how to do that, so my attention is here. Much love, dear Melissa. Dear Chloe, you are fascinated by astrology. I like that. And dear Dr. Ginny, you share that it's fascinating because it reminds you of the infinite nature of the universe. Yes, it's hard to feel finite. Well, it's hard to feel as though the universe is finite when you see its vastness. It's very easy to feel finite yourself. Maybe that would be a better system, wouldn't it, dear Tony, if the aliens came and decided things for us so we don't have to. But I like the challenge of us as a species figuring out the solutions to our problems that we have made for ourselves. Angel asks if I have a partner. I am a partner of every little bug that I see, each leaf on a tree, the birds, the clouds, the sun and the moon. I am a partner to no one exclusively, but everyone inclusively. Thank you, dear Melissa. And good night, dear Chloe. Hello, dear G2 Infinity. P-Flomatics, you're fascinated by Jupiter's hurricane. Yes. The eye of Jupiter. Or is it? Yeah, I'm thinking of Jupiter. A big red eye. The width of how many? 3 to 5 Earths in diameter. Raging for hundreds of years. Oh my goodness. We can be grateful for the weather patterns on Earth, even though they can be pretty intense. You wouldn't want to be on Jupiter. Dear Vanessa, thank you for the pumpkin too. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I love the hexagons that exist on the top of the gas giants. Very beautiful kind of fluid dynamic phenomenon on a rotating sphere. That on the top you get these polygonal currents. And in the case of Jupiter, I believe there's a hexagon on the top. It was very cool. You just wouldn't expect a hexagon. Why 6 sides? Why not 5 or 4 or 7 or 8? Alright everyone, thank you for exploring this question of the day with me. I'm happy to be joined by such a vibrant community of space fascinators. Is that a term? Someone who fascinates? A fascinator? Thank you, dear Gabrielle. Happy to have you here. Oh, I'd like to read from another section of our book, Hollywood to the Himalayas. We were exploring the journey of this American woman who later became known as Sadhvi Bhagavati Saraswati, as she embarked to find herself having this spiritual awakening in India. Let's continue where we left off. This chapter is called You Are Not a Pen. and it's the 15th chapter. The morning sun, rising over the nearby Himalayas, streamed through the window onto my new guru, Swamiji's face. We were sitting in his office across the desk from each other. Each time he raised his eyes from the papers and looked at me, the light was breathtaking. His eyes, always a dance of light, now reflected the sun's rays as mirrors. My heart stopped each time his eyes met mine. "Write to Dr. Rao in Colombia," he said, referring to the chief editor of the Encyclopedia of Hinduism. "Get a new latest chart of how many articles are still left to be assigned and how many are left to be received out of those that have been assigned already. Tell him I want to know the status." My pad was about half used. I'd been in Rishikesh nearly 2 months, and every few days I was called into Pujya Swamiji's room to receive more work. He had found an eager and competent typist, and I'd found something to do, a way to serve, to give back to this man in this place. My seva, a Sanskrit word meaning selfless service, consisted mostly of letters to write. It was simple correspondence. Swamiji would open a file full of letters he'd received and his own handwritten notes in Hindi. Flipping through the papers one by one, he instructed me what to say. 60 days ago, I had been taking final exams in advanced psychodynamic psychology, the biological basis of behavior and neurological assessment. I researched and wrote papers on psychopathology and psychodiagnosis. That too had already begun to bore me. How many more hoops do I have to jump through before I can actually start helping someone? I groaned at my neurology advisor, my parents, my friends, and anyone else who would listen. Now I spent hours a day typing on a pale blue manual typewriter, the kind I'd never actually seen except in movies, with huge keys that bounced up and down. Finger yoga, with no delete button. Mistakes had to be painted with liquid paper and typed over once the liquid had dried. The work was mostly typing short letters to devotees around the world. Blessings on weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, all with the essential question of, "When are you coming home to Rishikesh?" And the invitation, "The holy waters of Mother Ganga and the sacred Himalayas are calling you." Pujya Swamiji's arms and heart were open to all. The call was universal. Come home to Rishikesh. Recharge your batteries in this sacred land. Most of the correspondence was follow-up on projects, mostly the Encyclopedia of Hinduism, which was being overseen by K.L. Sheshagiri Rao, the editor, and his team at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, with satellite offices in Bangalore, Madras, now Chennai, Delhi, Nagpur, Benares, now Varanasi, and London. The irony of trading research into serotonin reuptake disruption for birthday blessings was lost on me. Neurologic and psychodynamic papers and studies felt meaningless, while ghostwriting blessings was exhilarating. I was too intoxicated to notice the paradox. On this autumn morning, I finally bought a pair of socks. Chill had begun to creep into the blue skies, and the marbled floor in my room at 4 a.m. reminded me of a favorite poem by Judith Viorst titled "Thoughts on Getting Out of a Nice Warm Bed in an Ice-Cold House to Go to the Bathroom at 3 o'clock in the Morning." Maybe life was better when I used to be a wetter. So I purchased a pair of synthetic brown socks that had a space for my big toe and larger one for the remaining toes to facilitate wearing them with flip-flops. When I returned home from shopping, Surya, Swamiji's main attendant, came to my room, walking in without knocking, as always, and announced, "Pujya Swamiji is calling you." So here we sat across from each other at his dark, glass-covered desk while I watched the light streaming through the window into his eyes. He read each paper quickly, then either placed it back in the file for work for another day, or removed it and began to dictate instructions. I scribbled on my makeshift pad, made by stapling together papers with writing on one side. Without a recycling infrastructure, the only environmentally friendly way to live in India is to reduce and reuse. Nothing is wasted. Every paper that arrives in the ashram, from envelopes to wedding invitations and everything in between, is reused. My pad had been created, like so many others, by cutting used paper in half, then stapling the sheets into a pad. I scribbled his dictation. Follow up with Dr. Rao, birthday blessings, replies to letters requesting Swamiji's presence at functions he would not be able to attend, knowing they were all props in the drama of why I was here. I made brief notes of people's names and crucial points. The language and the rest I would compose on my own. Really, what I wanted to do was just stare at the light streaming from Swamiji's eyes on the glass tabletop. He did not notice me doing this, as it looked as if I was gazing at the table, on which rested my pad and his file. I took just enough notes to ensure that I could complete the tasks and would be permitted to keep sitting there. The light reflected and refracted off the glass table into my own eyes, causing them to tear. Were the streams of water running down my face physical reactions to the light in my eyes, or was I crying? Where did the outer end and the inner begin? It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except sitting there as the sun rose gently over the Himalayas, pouring more incandescent rays onto his face and into my body, which was quickly dissolving into the chair on which I sat. Suddenly, Swamiji looked up from the file, held his pen in the air and said to me, "You are not this pen." I laughed. Was he really saying this, or was I imagining it? Pulled out of my dreamy journey of the rays of light, I realized he was saying something quite deliberate. "You are not this pen," he repeated. Although I could see he was serious, I laughed again. Of course I was not the pen. Had I melted my brain cells staring into the bright light? Was I unable to grasp the meaning of his statement? There were certainly many things about the world I did not know, but that I was not a pen wasn't one of them. Why was he saying this? "Yes, Swamiji," I said, trying to restrain my giggles at the absurdity of his statement. "I am not that pen." He didn't laugh, and his eyes no longer reflected the sun's rays, but generated a light of their own that seared straight into my chest and made my heart stop. "You laugh," he said, "because you know that you are not this pen, but you still think you are that body. You think that you are all the experiences it is having, all of its beauty, intelligence, emotions, pleasures, and pains. You still think that it is you." My breath disappeared. I couldn't speak. "Someday," he continued, "you will laugh in the same way when I say you are not that body." His eyes broke their hold on mine and returned to the file. "Now, Agai Baro, let's keep moving." "Next," he said, as he picked up a Hallmark card covered in hearts and flowers with the rounded, bubbly handwriting of a young girl. "Now write, 'My dear divine Gugu, I have received your beautiful card.'" "I am not this body." "Okay, that makes sense. I've had experiences of being out of my body before, not being the skin and bones of my physical frame, of melting and merging into the world around me. I had whirled and twirled on LSD at Grateful Dead concerts and merged into the tall grasses, sandy beaches, and warm afternoon sun of the Mendocino coast as Jim, some friends, and I spent a Saturday eating psychedelic mushrooms. Over these months in Rishikesh, unassisted by chemicals or plants, I had experienced nearly continuous expansions of consciousness beyond not only my body, but also the walls, doors, and rooms in which I sat or lay. I understand I am not the body, but not the experiences? Not what had happened and was continuing to happen? Not my emotions and the identity that generates them? In the 3 or 4 meetings of the 12-step group for eating disorders that I'd attended, the first thing we said was, "Hi, my name is such and such. I am bulimic," or "I am anorexic," or etc., etc. This was the non-negotiable opening line. In group therapy, we began by sharing, "I am an abuse survivor." What I felt, thought, struggled with, reacted to, longed for, I had been told was due to these aspects of my history and identity. The depression and anxiety, the recovery from depression and anxiety, the recovery from the bulimia, the ability to forgive. Surely all of this was who I am. They were and are all inherent parts of me. How could I not be what I felt, knew, and experienced? If I'm not those things, then who am I? Each night, as the arti lamps are placed in a neat line along the bottom step above the flowing waters of Ganga, at the conclusion of the ceremony, as the blazing ghee-soaked wicks burn themselves out and thick plumes of camphor rise in the wind, we chant this mantra from the Upanishads. Purnam adaha, Purnam idam, Purnat Purnam adachyate, Purnasya Purnam adaya Purnam eva vasishyate. I had memorized these words before I knew what any of them meant. In time, I learned that this fundamental teaching of Indian philosophy says that the creator, the source, the origin, is full, complete, and infinite. This, which has come out of that, which has been created from that, removed from that, is also whole, complete, and infinite in itself. This mantra is the spiritual equivalent of the mathematical properties of infinity. Infinity minus 10 is still infinity. Infinity divided by 10 is still infinity. Infinity divided by 7.7 billion is still infinity. I found it difficult to concentrate on the paper Swamiji was handing me, and didn't leave much room for the instructions about correspondence. Fortunately, a few minutes later, one of the boys came in to tell him that the people he was to see at 12:30 p.m. were waiting in his garden. "Okay, that's enough for now," he said, and walked out the door. I went to lunch and pondered the infinite nature of round chapatis. Thank you for listening. That is the end of the 15th chapter. You are not this pen. We will continue reading the Hollywood to the Himalayas next time. Now we may open our Sangha to discuss whatever is on our hearts and minds. But first, allow me to thank all those who sent a gift whilst we read. Dear Gabriella, thank you for your heart me. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear Melissa, thank you for your heart me. TikTok and horror candies, or is it candles? Equally horrifying. Arum Perun Jyoti. Humble, thank you for the heart me too. Jai Sita Ram. And Andre, thank you for your trio of roses. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Rhiannon, thank you for your heart, me too. Om Aing Saraswatyaye Namaha. Dear Kev, thank you for your heart, me. Hare Krishna. Giuliano, thank you for your rose. GG, TikTok, and Cloudbread. Om Brahm Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. And Rhiannon, thank you for your pair of roses too. Hare Krishna. And Cody Jane, thank you for your heart, me. Om Brahm Hanumate Namaha. And dear Angela, thank you for your finger heart. Here's one for you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That sounds delicious, dear Stephen. And welcome all those who joined while we were reading. Moonlight, you shared that you are not sad tonight, you are happy tonight. I am happy to hear that. It goes to show that whatever we are experiencing, if it has a beginning, this too shall pass. But we, as the experiencer of the passing, is not one of those things that passes in and out of our experience. We are the eternal experiencer. I was wondering if that would happen, dear Skakala Binko. My cursive L kind of looks like a 2, doesn't it? But it should be L as an LGBTQ+. Perhaps I can fix that later. Same with the L and you are loved. Welcome, dear MJ. The question of the day today was, what do you appreciate about outer space? And thank you for asking, dear Moonlight. I am doing well. Nice to have you here, dear Indigo. And I'm happy you appreciate the whiteboard in the background. Loopy Lane, you ask, why did I mention eating? Don't we all love food? Isn't that part of what makes us human? We can always start a conversation about food. I love how our reading today ended with contemplating the infinite nature of chapati. It's very funny. But circles certainly have a lot of symbolism. You notice that many spiritual symbols have circles in them, representing wholeness and equality from all angles, representing a kind of efficiency, simplicity. There are infinite aspects of a circle that we could draw from. What is chapati? Asked dear Gregarji. It's a kind of food. I'm not exactly sure what kind of food, but I assume it's maybe a kind of round bread. I like your idea of including my sister along with the drawing, but no, this is my cutesy feminine artistic hand. Like naan, maybe like naan bread, dear Gregarji. I'm happy to hear that, dear Sapphire. Welcome, Mary. Dear Stephen, you appreciate the correct finger length on the drawn hand on the poster. So many get it wrong. You share. It was very difficult. that was probably the symbol I worked the most on, because I kept screwing it up. You know, more abstract shapes you can get away with a little disproportion. But if it's something like a human hand, there's very little leeway until it goes, hey, I look funny. Dear Gregor G, will I tell you what each symbol is for? Well, I'm still learning myself, but we have the yin yang of Taoism. We have the triple moon of paganism. We have the crescent moon and star of Islam. We have the menorah of Judaism, the cross of Christianity, the fish of Christianity, the Star of David of Judaism. I don't know what this symbol is called, but it's of Sikhism. We have the Enzo of Zen, the Om of Hinduism, the Jain hand of Jainism, the wheel of Dharma of Buddhism, a symbol of Sufism, a symbol for Allah in the Arabic script of Islam, and I think that's all of them. But I'm open to adding more. I just have to figure out where they go. I'm running out of room. Thank you, dear Loopy Lane, for your septet of friendship necklaces. We can put a little friendship necklace on each of the 7 chakras. We can say, you, O energy center, you are my friend. Dear Stephen, you share the Sikh sign is called the Kunda. Interesting. Thank you. I'm learning something already. Dear KYJ, you can tell me how to pronounce the J's in your name. Is it like an English Y? Kyoja? Or is it like the Spanish H? Kyoja. Why is there no pentagram? Well, there definitely can be. If there is a symbol that's not included, do know that it wasn't out of some reason to exclude any symbol. Naturally, if we put symbols up, of course someone is going to go, hey, what about that symbol? So we're not going to have every symbol possible on there, but I try to include as much as I can. I will try to find space for the pentagram, though. Thank you, dear Naurawakri, for your 20 TikToks. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Dear Kelly, thank you for your subscription too. I'm very grateful to be able to have a space that includes someone as generous as you in it, and I'm honored to share this journey of life with you. The Celtic curls, that'd be a great addition to dear Loopy Lane. And hello, dear Laura. Nice to see you again. Dear Gregor G, you give a fun fact that paganism is derived etymologically from what would be something like suburban or something similar. They started to refer to the people who worshipped the old pantheon after Constantine brought Christianity to Rome. Suburban. People of the suburbs. I love that. Radhe Radhe, dear Magdalene. And that's right, Max. I forgot the badminton symbol. One of the most important traditions in the world. And I like your addition, dear Loopy Lane, that symbols themselves are gateways to most primal essence of life. Someone should write a book about that. I think Jung did, actually. Carl Gustav Jung. think it's called Man and His Symbols. Something like that. Dear Sue, thank you for your baby penguin. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. And Michelle, thank you for your tiny yippee. Unfortunately, there is such a divisive nature that we are still evolving from as humans. We are still learning how to be inclusive to various cultures and traditions. Ultimately arises out of a sense of love. All things do. Love is the source of all things, good and bad. It's just that what arises from love that we deem as bad is just exclusive. If I say I love my soccer team only, then that means there's a relative absence of love for the other soccer teams. And that might increase in its contrast to the point where it seems as though the relative disparity is a kind of hatred towards other soccer teams. But it's only because we love our own so much. If we can find a way to increase our love for everything without decreasing our love for anything, then we can make that love an inclusive force, a force of inclusivity too. I am very happy that you find peace and comfort in this space, dear Laura. I hope you know that your experiences are valid, despite what you've gone through. Life has its challenges, there's no doubt about that. Let's use these challenges as reasons to live another day. And thank you, dear Jackie. In this moment, so many people are experiencing suffering. There are those who are sick in the hospital. There are those whom do not know what it's like to see a trailer for a movie and be confident that you'll still be around at the time that the movie comes out. There are those whom are in households that appear as perfect on the outside, but actually have a lot of abuse going on inside. Many people may express that they're doing okay, but internally may be struggling with some trauma. Millions of peoples have been displaced from their homes due to conflicts. Still, there are places without adequate food, water, medicine. In this moment, suffering is happening. But I don't want that to scare anyone. And I don't want anyone to feel like if that's true, then they don't deserve to be happy. Because what all of these people and places need is a bright light like you to remind them of what is possible. To keep the awareness of them in an uplifting sort of state, where we see the suffering of the world as a reason to become a contributor to the peace and happiness that this world so needs from us. Every time we are happy, let us be reminded of all those who can learn from our happiness. And whenever we are sad, let us consider all those whom we can learn from in their sadness also. Dear Lou Danielle, thank you for the little crown you had sent. Om Bharam Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. Challenges our reasons to grow. Indeed, dear soul. Thank you for being receptive to love and light, dear MJ. I bear the emblem of many religions behind me, not in validation of the suffering that has happened in their name, but a reminder that these should be symbols of peace and love. So let us continue to use them with that intention, so that no symbol becomes an embodiment of hatred or exclusivity. Let us take back the exclusive nature of symbols and make them inclusive again. Let us not be afraid of any tradition, but find a way in which we can uphold the universal values which we all can experience. Dear Dr. Ginny, thank you for your tiny and your trio of roses. Yahoo! Dear Cassie, thank you for your heart me as well. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Hello, dear Tiger Luna. Dear Loopy Lane, you wonder if we have entered Armageddon. We always have some problem in the world which will require a lot of smart, passionate, and determined individuals, including ourselves, to continue to attend to. It is not the nature of this world to end, but it is the nature of this world to provide us constant problems, so that we may be solvers. Constant pain, so that we may be healers. Constant challenges, so that we may be achievers. Life has found a way of existing, at least on this planet, for billions of years. And it has gone through many periods of change, and it will continue to go through change. Are we empowered to be a part of that change, or resist that change? This space is infinite, so that there is infinite room for growth. And as we continue to grow to new heights, and we look back at how far we've come, let us continue to be inspired of how far there is to always go. And thank you, dear Lou Danielle, for your little crown. Ram Ram. Dear Laura, you ask, how do you reconnect to someone you once felt neglected and rejection from, once you love for? We cannot expect anyone to connect with us if they are unopen to it. But wherever there is an opening, it is one's duty to find common ground. Let us first find a foundation of agreement before tackling things of disagreement. We have all had different experiences, but they overlap. What is at the overlap of these unique experiences? How can we start there and make bridges elsewhere? And dear MJ, thank you for your rose. Om Gringalikai Namaha. Thank you, dear Dr. Jenny. I hope that all good that is in me is just a reflection of what's possible within you. Because goodness is not an individual trait. It's a universal trait. How we limit that goodness is an individual trait. And so all that which is exclusive that I create, that is something for me to work on. But all that which is inclusive, I cannot take credit to that, because it is inspired by the universal consciousness which we are all a part of. Good night, dear Sue. May you have a beautiful sleep. And hello, dear Inevitable. Skupa, you mentioned the wheel of samsara. Speaking of inevitability, we are constantly throwing ourselves into the pit of change, expecting to latch on to something that will satisfy us. And then, as it inevitably leaves our experience, as all things do that come, we feel a loss. We feel like part of ourself has come and gone. But the Buddhists teach us, they teach the whole world, that that which has a beginning also has an end. And therefore, if we cling to something temporary, including status, our material possessions, our body, even our memories and emotions, someday we will have to experience the heartbreak of saying goodbye to all of these things. But what if that didn't have to be the case? What if there was a way of being in which goodbyes became a lot easier? A way of being centered so that we understand a sense of self which is not dependent on the experiences of our senses and mind, but completely free. This is what the path of the Buddhists teach us. This is the path of all spirituality, truly. A way of returning to our true essence, which we call the spirit. And thank you, dear Loopy Lane, for your hanging lights. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Dear Laura, it is understandable that you miss common ground that was once shared, but naturally, people do grow apart, and that's okay. A friendship is not only valuable while it's upheld. Those that are no longer in our life, either just circumstantially or physically, we still value the experiences we've had with them. And we can never expect anyone to open up to us, because that would require them becoming vulnerable. And vulnerability is a personal choice always. Yes, we might know, due to our own experience of vulnerability, that it's a good thing to open up. However, we can also see in our own experience that we felt ready to open up as soon as the pressure to do so was alleviated. Dear Sky Guardian, Brother Danet's live streams are wonderful, and he deserves not just 4 times the people in our live stream, but 400 times, as his music touches a deep part of our soul. Please do not feel like there is any kind of comparison that needs to take place between one live stream and another. If there are more popular live streams than this one, but you feel most welcome here, that's an honor. And I'm happy to have such a special community, no matter how big or small. Even if it's just one person, I would be honored to be able to connect with you. Dear Medium Rare, you share that you feel so tired and sad today. This human experience is hard. I feel you. It is hard, but we can make it easier on ourselves. That's lovely, dear Indigo. I'm happy that you're starting your day with a nutritious breakfast. Just as our body requires physical nutrition, our minds require mental nutrition too. What is mental nutrition? What is nutrition? What is it about the food that we put into our body that makes it nutritious? It allows it to grow. It allows it to be as pain-free as possible. It allows it to heal. It allows us to make the most use of our body. Energizes it, gives us fuel. So nutritious food for the mind, food for thoughts, would probably be ideas that make us grow, allow us to heal, to be energized, to make each faculty function as optimally as we can, so that we may make the most use out of our mind. What would be an example of such a healthy thought that inspires growth, healing, energizes us, allows each part to function optimally. I imagine that affirmations are up there. Affirmations that affirm what you're capable of. And the validity of your experience. Knowledge that allows us to understand our world. Diverse perspectives. Just like having a diverse diet is very important for the body. Get a wide range of vitamins from different sources. Diversity is important. It may be important also to consider what isn't necessarily healthy. We can ask questions about certain parts of our diet. We ask, is this full of nutrients? Is this easy on my organs? Is this going to provide me with energy? Is this going to help me grow? And I'll leave your own intellects to figure out the answer to those questions, depending on the type of food that you ask. Similarly, there are things that we consume with our mind, through our eyes and ears. We can ask the same question. And see if our attention can be turned elsewhere. You may notice also that the kind of food that tastes the best might not necessarily be the kind of food that works the best for you. Similarly, the kind of thoughts that feel the best might not be the kind of thoughts that work the best either. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable to be disciplined enough to eat healthy foods, in the same way that it can be uncomfortable to be disciplined enough to think healthy thoughts too. So if it's challenging, that means we're expanding our comfort zone. Thank you, dear Deanna, for the Heart Me and pair of team bracelets that you sent. Namaste. Om Namo Buddhaya. Dear D'Angelo Pack, you share that you are feeling overwhelmed with too many choices. You feel drawn to too many subjects and possibilities. It makes you feel stuck. You are just like the donkey that hadn't eaten for months, hadn't drinken for weeks, and it was given the choice between a pail of food and a pail of water. This donkey was so relieved that there was food and water. He was going to die from starvation or dehydration any second. He was thinking, oh my goodness, given how important both of these things are to me, I wonder which one I should pursue first. And so the donkey thought about it. Should I eat the food first? Or should I drink the water first? What should I do? The donkey thought, tough decision. And in that indecisiveness, the donkey died. The end. Moral of the story: it doesn't matter what decision you make if they're both great options. Don't feel like you're somehow limited from happiness, even though you know that that other thing could provide you happiness. Happiness is not something to extract from a choice. It's something to express from within you. Whatever you are doing, know that your happiness is always a possibility. You are never excluded from the possibility of happiness. So simplify yourself. Worry not about a complex set of principles guiding which decision is best. Naturally, just make each decision best. Don't make a decision that is already best. Start with a decision and then make it best. Thank you, dear Lion Pyog, for your wonderful rose. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. And dear Mike, thank you for your rose too. Ram Ram. Tatvamasi, thank you for your quintet of roses. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Thank you, Diana, for another rose too. Hari Om Tat Sat. And dear Lisa, thank you for your rose. Jaya Satchitanandam. Nice to see you too, dear Tatvamasi. Dear Loopy Lane, you ask if both are great options, how do you know the potential outcome of a choice you make? And that is exactly the secret. You don't have to. And you can never. Because happiness is not an outcome. It's an income. But I mean that in a more linguistic sense than something coming from outside, because that is an outcome, isn't it? How about this? Happiness is an outgo. It's something that goes out rather than comes from without. This is the song of the ancient sages. As they cry and their teardrops form the scriptures of the world's religions, they speak in many tongues, but unified in essence. That our happiness does not come from the outcome of life. Happiness does not come from anywhere. Happiness is something that we exercise at any moment. A child does not have to know how to be happy. They just are. They forget how. We have to relearn that. And we were told to forget how because we have to be serious. We have to realize that life is all about sadness and anger and grief. And that you shouldn't be happy when other people are suffering. And that your happiness will be your downfall because it makes you vulnerable. You can't be joyful now because that would upset the people that aren't joyful. Somehow the adults, they convinced us that happiness at all times was a weakness. But whoever said there needs to be another way than having a generation of happiness from within? Tati Munaka, you share that you were told that you smile too much. I've been told that I laugh too much. People have been told that they wear too colorful clothes, that they dance too much, that they sing too much, that they whistle too much. Somehow, we've made it so in our culture that too much happiness is a bad thing. That if someone is being angry, you should get angry. That if there is sadness, you should get sad. That if someone around you is afraid, you should also be afraid. And there is truth to sharing the emotions of others, but depending upon the circumstance to provide us a moment to be happy, that is a gamble. Because then some moments we will be happy and other moments we will not. According to some arbitrary guideline for what makes this moment a permission slip for you to be happy. That no, you must be happy only when you have someone in your life that can treat you romantically. You can only be happy once you reach $1 million. You can only be happy once you're a CEO. You can only be happy once that your face looks a certain way and is free of acne. You're only allowed to be happy when your thighs have a gap. You're only allowed to be happy when you're not depressed anymore. You're only allowed to be happy when you're actually a functioning member of society. You're only allowed to be happy, etc., etc., etc. Why not start with happiness? If there are things to do in this life, if there are things to achieve and work towards, let's do so happily, rather than restrain our happiness that's always waiting to be expressed. You're allowed to be happy even while you're grieving. Anyone tell you that? You're allowed to be happy even while you're depressed. Did you know that? You're allowed to be happy even while you're struggling. You're allowed to be happy even when your tummy's hurt. You're allowed to be happy even when experiencing loss. You're allowed to be happy even when you're crying. You're allowed to be happy even if you failed the test. There's no place where you're not allowed to be happy. Now, I wouldn't recommend bursting out into laughter at a funeral. But the expression of happiness is not necessarily the same as happiness. Inwardly, you can have a kind of joy, but still be absolutely connected with what the circumstance inspires from you. And if your circumstance inspires from you to share the grief of someone else, to care to an upset tummy, to stand up for a minority, you're welcome to express yourself in a way that doesn't necessarily appear as happy, but inwardly never let that happiness go. Thank you, dear Lisa, for the rose you sent. Hari Om Tat Sat. And dear Strawberries, thank you for your heart mito. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Dear Babblefishy, you share that you're sad about world suffering as it haunts you. Well, you're allowed to be happy even while you're sad about world suffering. You're allowed to be happy even while you experience it haunt you. And you're allowed to be happy as you fight for change in this world, so that we make it a less sufferable place. You're allowed to be happy as you strive for change without having reached the destination yet. Happiness is that rare thing that you can feel without any other feeling having to go. You don't have to wait until your sadness, your fear, your grief, anything leaves. It's like space. It's always there, permeating everything. It's just that unless you're sensitive to it, we only recognize space when there's nothing there. When it's filled with other stuff, it's hard to recognize the space that contains it. Dear MJ, thank you for your horror candles, the pair of them. Om Dum Darkaye Namaha. And Cassie, thank you for your trio of pumpkins. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Anna shares that you yourself are the source of the love which brings you happiness. And welcome, Chihiro. Dear Blue Butterfly, you ask, how did I discover this path that I'm on? I suppose by realizing that I'm on it. You just look down and you go, oh, there's a path under my feet. It's already there. Indigo, thank you for your subscription. No one is ever expected to subscribe, and ultimately what a silly thing it is to have a little a payment to say that you are really part of this community, because you always are and everyone else is. But I hope you enjoy the little benefits that come with it, like a sticker pack, and I look forward to continuing to be of service to this world that we exist in together. I'm unfamiliar with that, dear Paralyzing Venom, but you're always welcome to teach me something new. Dali, you share that sometimes it's hard to be happy. It can appear so if we assume that there's some way to be happy that we're expected to be, like that we have to put on a smile for others or present ourselves as having everything together. You don't have to do any of these things to be happy. You're allowed to be disheveled and happy and have a frown on your face and happy. You're allowed to be struggling. And you're allowed to tell people that you're struggling. But happiness is effortless. It's what remains once you go, once you release everything else that you're holding on to. It requires effort to be angry. It requires effort to be sad. It requires effort to be afraid. How do I know that? Because it takes energy. It's exhausting to feel any of those things for a long time, but you can never be exhausted of being happy. You can never go, I just wish this happiness would end, you know? HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. A beautiful acronym, a great way of checking in on ourselves. if we are feeling unhappy. Did I thank you, dear Lou Daniel, for the little crown you sent? I know you've been very grateful and sent a couple things. I thank you again regardless for this one. Om Sum Suryaya Namaha. Dear Anna, you give the happiness equation that support and acceptance means happiness. And that support does not even have to come from without. We are the source of support, the source of acceptance. Why and how so? Because it is the most meaningful thing to be a supporter, to be an acceptor, to provide support and acceptance empowers us. Much love, paralyzing venom. Radhe Radhe. Thank you, dear Lisa, for the TikTok that you had sent. Om Mani Padme Hum. Your 7 days of doom, dear Talon, you're funny. I think it's a very sacred time when a person is in the stage of their menstrual cycle. I assume that's what you're referring to. When the blood starts flowing, the outer lining of our uterus begins to shed. I think it's a very sacred time because it represents the mother in her most raw form. In many temples in India, for example, there are Kali temples in which the statues are decorated with a stream of red powder coming from the yoni. And participants come and place their finger in that and put it on their forehead as a sign of respect that the feminine sacrifices so much to bring life into this world. And these bodies are as incredible as they are terrifying in terms of what is capable with them. My mom calls that time her moon time, since the lunar cycle also has 28 days. And the moon is a symbol of change, of feminine energy, of the turning tides and the changing phases of the moon, and the ability to reflect light or harbor darkness. And we require both in order to have a dynamic existence. Dear Babblefishy, thank you for your quartet of roses. Om Som Somaya Namaha. And Greg, thank you for your heart me and quartet of roses too. Om Kringalikaye Namaha. And thank you, Lou, for another little crown. This one I know is new. Jaya Sitaram. That's right, Bubbles. Dear Laura, can I give you a question for your mind to ask for answers? Sure. You can ask, what is the most important question? Dear Leona, you ask for an example of harboring darkness. Consider the inside of a womb. I don't know if you've ever been in one, or if you remember, but it was pretty dark in there. You know? They need to make an outlet where you can plug in a nightlight. Maybe they could turn the belly button into one of those fancy outlets that has multiple different kinds, you know? One for AC, one for a USB, one for USB Type-C. We could make the belly button into having the umbilical cord, but also a little slot to plug in something, you know. The darkness is a quality of the feminine because it is from darkness that light arises. She provides the space for creation to emerge in her womb form. So too, when we see and label things in our world as dark, it is not a bad thing whatsoever. It just means that something is growing there, or has the capacity to grow there, assuming it is seated. Life in some form can arise. This is true in all sense of the word, both physical but also metaphorical. We say the world can be a dark place, but in that darkness we can find our inner light. We can find the potential for great change, as it is in those places that we turn our attention to, so that we find a place to express what can be made real. Dear Bubbles, you were wondering about the question of the day. Today, I asked, what do you appreciate about outer space? I have not tried that, dear paralyzing venom. But remember that all of our synapses, which can be bound by psychoactive substances, they exist due to a process that is a part of this system. If you know how to turn on the light from within, you don't have to go about smashing holes in the wall to get the light coming from outside. That's lovely, dear Woo Woo. I'm grateful that you have such compassion for small creatures, such as a Christmas beetle, which I've never heard of until now. It's one of those fancy bugs that glow in the back, but this time between green and red. And if you listen closely, you can hear jingle bells. Is that a Christmas beetle? Or is it when Paul McCartney says, "Merry Christmas"? Is that a Christmas beetle? Thank you, dear Lou, for your garland headpiece. Om Praum Hanumate Namaha. Hello, dear Alyssa. And hello, dear Mason. The Christmas beetles do shine indeed. Ah, pearlescent, reflecting the many colors, perhaps. And hello, dear Al. All right. I would like to read from another section of this lovely little book as a little interim, to seed our garden of flowers of thought. Let's read from another of 108 Adages of Wisdom by the Chan Buddhist Master Sheng Yen. This one says, when angry, learn to contemplate and illuminate the mind. Consider your thoughts and ask yourself, why do I want to feel angry? And it comes with a little depiction of someone interviewing themselves in the mirror, asking, why was I so angry at that moment? And the person in the mirror says, observe. Observe your mind, and you will find out why. And the little dog little puppy eyes looking up at us, just as there are vulnerable people in our life that look up to us from afar, perhaps, and depend on us to make this world a less angry place for them, a more patient place. Something very beautiful about the mind that we might not always recognize is that there's something else, a couple of things going on. Even if our whole mind feels chaotic, our intellect might be perfectly still. In the West, it's considered a part of the mind, our intellect, an aspect. In the East, it's considered something entirely different. Your mind could be anxious, but your intellect, which exists just at a different layer of consciousness, can be perfectly steady. And so we can bring ourselves to the steadiness of our intellect and ask questions about the mind. We can ask our thoughts, why do I feel this way? Do I need to know why? If so, how can understanding my feelings, my thoughts, help it sort itself out? Bringing knowledge to our intellect, bringing a curiosity to the mind. These are one of the same things. In an angry moment, it's easy to lose sight of that part of our anthakarana, our inner senses, called the buddhi, the intellect. Let us keep that in mind. Thank you for listening. A lovely little interim. Dear Mason, you point out that anger is a secondary emotion. And you've observed that usually you get angry because someone hurts you and you're sad. That's a wonderful observation. We can ask, what's hurting? What kind of defense am I putting up surrounding a tender and sweet part of ourself which is vulnerable? What loss might I be afraid of experiencing? What sadness still pervades me? And I'm very happy to hear that you found a path of letting go, dear Al. What's that, dear Magdalene? You ask about scream crying. That sounds very expressive and very relieving. Good night, dear Neon Jello Pack. May you have beautiful dreams and a restful sleep. Oh, scrying is what Gregorji brought up. Scrying. Is that scream crying? Asked Magdalene. Well, it could be as a portmanteau, but I believe it refers to the ability to look at something without revealing what it is that you're looking at. Is that right? I only know so due to Magic the Gathering, a tabletop card game in which you could scry, and that meant you got to look at the next card you were going to pick up without revealing what it was. If that's true in a more general sense, we can thank tabletop games for teaching me something. Your son loves that game, dear Linda Lou. It's a very creative game, a very expensive game as well. Hello, dear Mermander. But you know, scream crying could be a kind of scrying, couldn't it? As we radiate something which expresses a deep part of ourself, inwardly we may withdraw into deeper and deeper parts to express. And so we scry betwixt our thoughts and memories and pull out a kind of message that cannot be silenced. Thank you, Mermander, for your heart me. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. And TYTY, thank you for your trio of roses. Om Mani Padme Hum. I have been well, dear Mermander. My birthday was very unique this year, as I didn't expect to receive so many birthday wishes. I received more birthday wishes this year than any other year. Thanks to you all. And that's deeply humbling. And thank you, dear John Simon, for the heart me you shared too. Om Bharam Bhairvai Namo Namaha. Taylin, you had shared that you don't often get angry with others, but you do often get angry with yourself. You internalize a lot. We are angry creatures. There's no hiding that. You can try to hide your anger from others, but you'll end up just being subject to it yourself. We need an outlet for anger that is healthy. All of our emotions require some way of being expressed. Trying to repress any emotion only just increases its power to arise next time, doesn't it? You know? If you've ever tried to be patient with someone, and what we really mean when we say we're trying to be patient is that we're trying not to express our anger, which isn't true patience now, is it? The next time that same person tests your patience, the anger just becomes that much easier to be expressed. And Mason, you had asked if I also believe that anger is a secondary emotion. It is my vow to see the truth in whatever your belief systems are, and so you have shared an experience which makes sense to me. I believe you. And when I look at my own experience, I also see that anger is usually not alone. It comes along with other feelings. The Buddhists too said that anger was quaternary, not just secondary. Anger is quaternary. Fear is tertiary. Attachment is secondary. And ignorance is primary. That is to say, it is from ignorance that fear develops. Well, yes, but from fear that attachment develops. From attachment, fear develops. And from fear, anger develops. And so we can get to the cause of ignorance to hopefully illuminate by asking ourselves when we're angry, what are we afraid of? And then when we discover that fear, we ask ourselves, what are we attached to? And then when we discover that, we ask, what am I ignorant of? Specifically, what do I believe is permanent that I am ignorant of concerning the nature of impermanence? It's a bit of a more specific step, that one, but ultimately, we get angry to try to protect ourselves from the fear of loss. Loss of that which we are attached to because we believe that it should or is a permanent part of our existence, when actually we have to understand that it's subject to change like all things are. And you can imagine, and hopefully not just imagine, but make this practical, that if we truly accept the changing nature of everything, we no longer believe that anything in our life has to be permanent, then how can attachments develop? And if there are no attachments, how can you be afraid? There's nothing to lose. And there's nothing to lose, nothing to fear. Where does anger come in? So, I love that connection between this observation of anger arising as from something else in your experience there, Mason, and this Buddhist view of dependent origination. That's right, dear Fadnor. Mashallah. Daydream, you ask, how do we heal a broken heart before it infects the soul? Is it all realizing detachment? A great question. And to what I said, while you had asked that, you also said, this is true, but much harder said than done with a broken heart. Or much easier said than done with a broken heart. It'd be nice if it was harder said than done, wouldn't it? Your soul is the medicine. If we're going to use the metaphor of infection, is the soul the vulnerable flesh that can be infected? Or is it the medicine itself, such that being in contact with it begins to heal the wounds? In heartbreak, we feel a loss of soul. We feel like some essence of our existence, which is ultimately what soul means, has been separated from us. But if we think about the utter foolishness of that possibility, that the essence of our existence could in any way be separate from us, we are that very essence which we are grieving loss of. Which is funny, because it's unnecessary. But the grief is entirely valid. And this is where the paradox comes in. It's silly to feel like you've actually lost something, but it's absolutely valid to go through the motions of expressing that loss. And we unify those two aspects in this way. That what we are expressing is not due to some loss, but actually a kind of gift. Some part of our life has changed, and we express all the love that we had begun to generate for that form. We free up the space, and so that grief is the love itself that we had held, and now we are giving back. That essence of life we call soul, that is pervading us and pervading whatever we feel heartbroken for. It is already one and whole and part of our life, as it always has been and will always be. But it's the way in which that essence expresses itself. It is that which has changed. And our love is just a part of that process of change, coming in the form of grief in this moment. And that is entirely valid. Thank you, dear Rain Volt Mom, for your hand hearts. I love that. Ram Ram. And what a beautiful addition, Unidextrous Prime. That's a great biblical connection. That even a divine figure who is by all means established in truth and peace, even they experience grief at a physical, emotional level. You may notice that the concept of detachment arises frequently in spiritual spaces. But you know what's funny? All of our spiritual teachers have been emotional. So clearly, detachment doesn't mean being emotionless. All of the great beings that have walked this path and have made their mark for generations to come, they've all laughed, they've all cried. One does not have to ignore one's own humanity to be able to discover the transcendental spirit, because humanity is just another beautiful expression of that very same spirit that has produced this entire experience. Thank you, dear Daydream. Grieving is a part of healing. Thank you for saying that, dear Indigo. Talon, you wonder, did I make my background or was it my sister? You know, you're not the only person that has asked that. And I didn't even think that would be a question. I love my sister. She's actually a very wonderful artist, and she doesn't share much of her art because, you know, she's embarrassed. But she's wonderful, and I would be honored to have her contribute to this, but with all due respect to her art, it is so precious that I could never compare to it. And this is something much how am I going to say this? My sister could have produced a much more beautiful background. No, this was of my own hand. Yes. Well said, Dev. Honoring tears can be so freeing. Thank you, dear angel. Thank you, Dalen. I'm glad you like the swirls, Angel. I'm a big fan of swirls. Dear G to Infinity, you share in your humble opinion that true love is knowing how to transmute the energy within. I like that. And how could you possibly do that without sometimes being an emotional mess? I wish to break it to everyone that spirituality is messy, messy, messy. We come in full contact with all of our insecurities, all of our fears, our desires. And if we try to resist any part of that, we'd just be adding to the drama. But you know what? Mother Nature is messy. If you spend enough time in nature, and you come back inside your home, your mother will tell you, clean up that mess that's in your hair, on your face, behind your ears, under your toes. What did we do? We just spent time in nature, full of dirt, and mud, and twigs, and leaves, and bugs, and moss, and slime, and fungi. We get it from our Mother Nature. And then our other mother tells us how to clean ourselves up from that. How to purify ourselves. Beautiful sentiments, dear Max. And dear Easy Real. Easy Real. When we reject our emotions, we reject our mother. The Divine Feminine is the goddess of emotions. We pay homage to her by having them. Speaking of dirt, dear Greg RG, you like dirt. Dirt makes you happy. Oh, these are song lyrics. Even better. I like dirt. Dirt likes me. It makes me happy. Where's the dirt man when we need him? Dear Indigo, you share that to forage in the forest is wonderful and also rock hounding. Oh, I recommend this to everyone. Just get absolutely lost. What I mean by that is don't make it so you can't be found. Not that kind of lost. Don't make it so a helicopter has to come and pick you up off a mountain. Just lose yourself in nature. Lose your sense of self. Mold into the trees. Find yourself feeling like you are just this forest, but come alive to witness itself through human eyes. Feel as though you are Mother Earth awoken. One of my favorite things to do is put myself in the middle of some forest that I know has civilization all around the outside. And then I spin around and I get lost so that I don't know what direction I came from. And then assuming I can just follow a straight path, I just go in one direction and I'll eventually hit a road and find my way home. But I love that feeling of being lost in nature. Tattvama Asi, thank you for your quintet of roses. Jaya Nisargadatta Maharaj. Jarrett, thank you for your heart, me too. Om Namah Shivaya. Dear G to Infinity, you ask, what is my favorite insight from my week off and being lost? That true success is found in achieving small things unique to you. Just give yourself little challenges. Goofy, silly challenges. I can speak of many that happened during the week I was off. While I was walking, I said, I'm not going to bring my phone. That's going to be a goofy little challenge. So if I get stuck, I'll have to use my communication skills with fellow human beings in the area. Or find my way home myself. My flip-flops fell apart on day 3, and so I had to walk home without shoes on. You don't want to see what my feet look like right now. I've got some pretty nasty looking blisters. But that was my goofy little silly challenge, is that I'd walk barefoot home. You might say that's dangerous. I would tell you you're right. But if you don't risk just a little bit of life, are you really living at all? I ended up finding my way to a beach. And the tide was so high that I couldn't walk along it. But then I said to myself, well, sure I can. The beach is still there. There's just water above it. What's wrong with walking through water? Oh, well, I'd get wet, I'll tell myself. My pants will get wet. And then I'll get home wet. Well, what's wrong with that? I asked myself. I'm just going to get home wet. And so I walked for an hour just through the water, through the night, along the beach. Sure, I got home wet and a little cold, but I would do it again, because how lovely it is to wade through shallow water while the moon is on the horizon reflecting, and in the silence of the night, you are just one with the water. Little challenges like that I give myself. And each time I learn something along the way. Thank you, dear Jarrett, for your heart meat, pair of hat and mustaches, a baby ghost, a tiny, yahoo, a baby hippo, a baby penguin, a pumpkin, and horror candles. Thank you. Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kari Devi Narayani Namostute. Thank you, dear Lisa, for your rose. Jaya Satchitanandam. I'm so happy to hear that, dear Drea. And thank you, Diana, for another rose. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. Dear Orianan, you share that you experienced an epic phoneless walk like that, experienced all the seasons in a few hours. It snowed so hard and you had to make shelter under a bridge. I love that. Because you know, it's stories like that where on your deathbed you're not gonna go, oh, I wish that didn't happen. Stories like that where you're just gonna be nodding to yourself like, yeah, I did that, I experienced that. And thank you, dear Loopy Lane, for your baby ghost, baby penguin. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Easy Real, thank you for your baby penguin too. Very cute gifts. There, I figured out what we can do for the baby penguin. I'll just do pingu noises. And those who don't know pingu, please discover pingu yourself. Thank you, Angela, for your ice cream cone too. Om Brahm Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. And that's right. These mantras are in Sanskrit. Thank you, Diana, for your tiny too. Yum 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 yum. So many people saying noot noot. You know what I love about yogis? And to be gender inclusive, yoginis, which is technically the feminine form of yogi, and I just love that. I think that should be the standard. Yogini, it's like a Houdini, linguini, fettuccine, yogini. You know what I like about yogis and yoginis? Is that they are the ultimate neurodivergent. You know, they're always stimming. I'm doing it right now. It's just instead of a fidget spinner, I'm using a Rudraksha spinner, which is sacred and considered symbolic of Rudra, the cosmic roarer. Yogis always have something in their hands. They're always playing with something. The Tibetan yogis, they're just spinning one of those prayer wheels. They're just stimming. But they're stimming with spiritual intention. They've always got a song playing in their head. But instead of a pop song, it's a devotional song to the Divine Mother or something, you know? And I feel that the rise of neurodivergence in the West is just a rise in yogis, just without the spiritual connotation. That everything that you do as a neurodivergent can be made spiritual. Give your hands something spiritual to play with. Give your mind something spiritual to play on loop. Give yourself mantras to say. So whenever there are meme sounds that we say, that get each other to say the same sound, that just reminds me, as if there were nostalgia for a past life I don't remember, of a culture in which I'd say a mantra and everyone would say that mantra. In the same way today, we say a Vine sound or a TikTok sound and everyone says that sound. We are ripe for the cultivation of spiritual practices. Hello, dear Buddha, in your voice. I love that, dear Magdalene. I like your roar, dear Josant. Much love, dear Deanna. May you have a wonderful night. Well said, dear Gregarji. These traits of our fellow human beings may appear without the connotation of spirituality, but still with all the spirituality. Yeah, it was a very funny revelation when I was just, thinking about all these gurus and spiritual teachers. They got a mala in their hand, or a spinning prayer wheel, or some devotional instrument, or a prayer flag, or, so many different religious items they're just playing in their hands. I'm thinking, that's just a fidget spinner, that's just one of those fidget cubes. That's just one of those clicky pens, but for spiritual people. It's a way of imbuing meaning into everything that you do, a way of making our human expression deeply meaningful in all that we do. All right, I think it's a good time to begin to bring our live stream to a close tonight. However, I would like to do so slowly and smoothly, so that we land the plane without turbulence. Because so far we're up here. The moment this live stream ends, I will tell you, the next live that comes up, who knows who knows what you're about to experience, Or if you turn off your phone or exit the app, coming from a sangha to the real world can be quite jarring. So let's return slowly. I have a question for all of you. Today I'm wondering, what fascinates you about outer space? I truly would love to know. I have been fascinated with outer space for as long as I can remember, looking up at the stars. Certainly get that from my father. Easy Real, you are fascinated by the fact that it's absolutely terrifying. You're not wrong. Something that I can relate in with my father too. I remember him telling me that he would get so overwhelmed with the idea of black holes and supernova and galaxies and the vastness of it all. Very relatable. The scale is beyond human comprehension. Yes, that's a wonderful answer. Dear Gregarji, a niche answer is the music of the spheres. How esoteric of an answer. Would you teach me what the music of the spheres is? Correspondence, shares Ryan. What a beautiful one-word answer. I like that a lot. It's a beautiful word. Don Suela, you share that it's constantly expanding and growing. That's such an enormous thought to comprehend. And that fooled Einstein. When he was deriving his equations that express the geometry of space-time. When you're solving an integral, calculus students know you get an extra variable at the end, a plus c. Well, that came out in Einstein's derivation too, and he he didn't believe that there was this constant in the way that it came out in his equation of relativity. Instead of plus c, he chose plus capital lambda because, c was taken. And he kept it there because that's what the math told him, that there's this plus lambda term in the field equations. But it was his greatest regret keeping it there because he felt like it didn't need to be there. Why? Because that constant implied that the universe was expanding. And Einstein didn't actually believe that. But he believed the math. And when he found out through later research that the universe actually was expanding, his greatest regret became actually one of his greatest contributions to physics. And I just love how that goes to show that our universe is not at all static. It is evolving just as we are too. And dear Magdalene, you share that when you try to comprehend the vastness, your mind eventually accepts what it doesn't know. Ah, what a practical use of attempting to comprehend vastness, isn't it? I find that very similar to the importance of embarrassment and humility. If we bring those thoughts to mind, eventually the mind quiets itself because it doesn't want to try to think about those things anymore. It's a shortcut to making your mind shut up. It's just tell it to think about a mistake it made. It goes, I don't want to think about that. I like that inquiry, Josand. What is the vacuum made of? It is a fascinating question. Indigo, you are fascinated by constellations, pardon me, and how astrology was also studied by Babylonians. Very ancient, yes. Dear Space, you are fascinated by what's outside of it. How meta. The outside of outer space. The outest space. The outest space. Dear Greg RG, you were so sure I'd know. Thank you, but no, you can teach me this. Harmony of the spheres is an idea by Pythagoras that all planets vibrate. Think Schumann resonance. Ah, how lovely. I like that. I remember hearing some sound clips that NASA shared of the frequencies in different atmospheres. Very, very good spooky music if you want to hear that. Anna, you share that you wanted this topic so much you manifested it. I was wondering why it came so forcefully and through my consciousness to share today. Thank you, Anna. Dear Greg RG, you share that Pythagoras said that they all have frequencies at precise interval frequencies akin to musical notation. That's very beautiful. I know that in astrophysics, there is a gravitational resonance. What is the term? Orbital resonance or orbital harmonics. That one planet around a star can take 3 trips around while it takes another 2 trips, and that ratio of 3 to 2 is a ratio of frequency. Mind you, a really, really, really low frequency because it takes years, literally. But it's still a frequency. And if you pitched those up many octaves, you'd get a kind of chord, some kind of harmony, or maybe dissonance. We'll see. Hello, dear Becca. That's right, good observation. And Bobby Sue, thank you for your heart me. Team bracelet and cheer you up. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear Bobby Sue, You share that the absence of sound as we know it fascinates you in space. But there is vibration, and you think about that all the time. I love that. There is indeed vibration. Gravitational vibration, electromagnetic vibration. And if you know your quantum mechanics, chromatic vibration of the colored charge of the nuclear force too, but it's not exactly something an everyday experience, that one is. Dear Angela, you are fascinated by the possibility that there may be extraterrestrial life, and the possibility of life beyond Earth raises many questions. Indeed it does, dear Angela. Indeed it does. Evelise, and if I can pronounce your name better, do not hesitate to let me know. You are fascinated by the connection you feel with it. You love how it challenges the limits of your perception of what exists. That it does. All right. Thank you for exploring this question with me. I think it's lovely that we all share the same space, but have unique fascinations about it. We share the feeling of fascination, but express it through different words. We find connection with different stars. You find ourselves lost in different ways. I love how we all can find something within our experience that we share, objectively and subjectively. Thank you. The next thing I'd like to do, in beginning to wrap up our Sangha today, is to read another short section of Hollywood to Himalayas, a journey of an American woman who ended up discovering a spiritual awakening happening in her life while she went to India. She originally went with her husband, and then she said, "My dear husband, isn't it funny how I came here with you because you wanted to find a guru, but I found a guru." He didn't think it was that lovely, and so they separated. But even though she struggled with abandonment issues, she was perfectly peaceful to stay where she was and continue to discover more about herself. So let's continue where we left off, shall we? Chapter 16. Young and Celibate. I was in love with my new guru Swamiji. At first I thought it was awe. Then I thought it was ecstasy. Slowly I realized that I not only revered him, but also loved him. The fact that he was 20 years older than I seemed irrelevant and actually added to the excitement and allure. To be in love with a man my own age would be commonplace. To be in love with a 45-year-old holy man was quite special. It was a being in loveness that I had never experienced before, and it aroused desire not in the usual places. This desire sprang from a geyser deep within me that had been buried and capped my whole life. Every time I looked up at him, the cap blew off and a rushing, surging explosion of yearning crashed through me. But this yearning was different. Typically, yearning stems from lack, wanting to obtain something we don't yet have. This yearning shared space with attainment. It coexisted with fulfillment. It was a yearning born not of emptiness, but of fullness. As the shower of offerings from the universe poured into my tiny cup, rather than let it runneth over, I tried to expand the cup. I wanted more. And so if I could just keep expanding and expanding, I would be able to absorb increasingly more ecstasy. In fact, I wanted the cup of myself to shatter so that with no limit I could absorb the bliss. The closer I got to Swamiji, the larger my cup seemed to grow. As my eyes fell on him, whether he was singing as he led the arti, working at his table, or meeting people in the garden, this surge of desire exploded into, it seemed, an already full, actually overflowing river of gratitude. I cannot believe it, I kept saying to myself aloud. I cannot believe it. From my eyes streamed tears of fullness, and my chest heaved as I gasped, trying to breathe enough to stay present in each moment. And in the midst of the fullness and gratitude and expansion was also the bursting geyser of desire. I loved him and was in love with him. I yearned to be even closer, to experience even more oneness, more expansion. I yearned for absolute union on every level. Swamiji was not the least bit interested. Each time I walked in front of him, he looked through the self with which I identified, through my body, through my organs and limbs, and which I yearned to connect into the intangible source of me. He didn't even have to say it. I could feel it. As a woman knows when a man undresses her with his eyes, I knew that with him my entire physical frame was an optical irrelevancy, a dust-covered window through which he saw the me I was just yearning and learning to meet. In the beginning, I thought that it would just take more time for him to become interested in me that way. He had been celibate his entire life. He knew nothing else. But as the days became weeks and months, there was no shift in his energy. Despite the now numerous times we'd been alone in his room, he had not reached out even once to touch me. Despite making myself as energetically available as I could, he responded only by turning my energy inward, by sending me back into myself. After more than 2 months, I noticed a slight pull within myself. When the river of ecstasy was flowing within me, some part seemed to stay behind, locked out of the ecstasy by a dam of self-doubt. A seed of anxiety, planted when I wasn't aware, began to sprout now and push its way through my joy. Did he really not want me? What was wrong with me? The concept of conscientious celibacy, abstinence by choice, was foreign to me and thus meaningless. Why would anyone choose that? What's wrong with sex? Months later, I read books by Swami Shivananda on the importance of conserving and protecting the ojas, our sacred bodily energy, and began to understand the philosophy behind the tradition of celibacy. But at this point, my interpretation was that there must be something wrong with me. I was young and beautiful. I was devoted and surrendered. I was available. How could he not want me? But he didn't. His disinterest was not personal, of course. The concept of any life other than as a celibate Swami had never occurred to him, just as the life of a celibate nun had never occurred to me. He had made a deeply conscious decision at a young age, and this was the life he would lead. This was the life he was born for, and this was his dharma. Later, when I was back visiting San Francisco, my yoga teacher, Manauso, explained to me how the specific yogic practices given to young monks actually change the very biology and chemistry of their bodies. Swamiji, as incredible as it seemed to me at the time, just did not experience any desire. It was not a battle of the wills to conquer desire. He simply, due to yoga, or I skipped a line, but that is accurate too. He simply, due to the intense decades of sadhana, daily spiritual practice, meditation, and yoga, had restructured the systems of his body and mind to be free of desire at all. There was no fertile field within him for that seed of desire to be planted. The question of its sprouting was moot. But at that time, I didn't understand. All I knew was that he didn't want me romantically or sexually. He did want me spiritually. He did want access to the deepest presence of spirit within me. He did want my heart to expand so I could love God more and more each day. So much of how I'd always identified was physical. Being attractive, having a nice body, being noticed, appreciated, and desired were the ways I knew I existed. Every time I looked in a mirror and liked what I saw, I knew I was worthy to occupy space on the planet. I belonged. I was lovable. To be desired was the height of worthiness. Now, here was someone saying, "You are wonderful. You are divine." Someone who poured love from his eyes through mine into parched and withered corners of myself, but he didn't desire me. How could I know I was wonderful if he didn't want me? How could I believe I was special when he was content to pat me on the head? He clearly had allowed me in closer than normal. While lines of devotees waited outside for his darshan, I was brought in directly. If he didn't want me romantically or physically, then what could I offer him? What was it that he wanted from me? And why me? I struggled with this question without finding an answer. In the beginning, I couldn't ask for fear that merely speaking the words would make him realize what a horrible mistake he'd made and send me back to America. It was better to be quiet, I thought. When I asked him finally, several years later, he said, "I took it as God's plan. I knew God had sent you for a special purpose. The way you arrived, the way you were, the purity of your heart, and the way love for God flowed through you. I just knew you had been sent for a reason. I don't question God's plan. I just follow it. So I kept you." That was enough for Swamiji. But for me, the question seeped into my mind like the contrast dyes they inject before an MRI or CT scan. It soaked into all parts of my conscious awareness. Whichever part of my brain was on, the questions were highlighted. Why me? And what does he want? In 25 years, I have found no intellectual answer. There is no one thing that I can point to in hindsight and say, that's what he wanted. That's what he saw. The answer is one of knowing rather than figuring out. Figuring out is an intellectual process. Brain stuff. Knowing is a state, an ability to rest in truth and expansion. In this place, I know now what he knew immediately. He wanted me to be there because it seemed to be God's plan. He had no other motive than that. Nor in 25 years has he ever wanted anything from me other than to just be there and allow grace and service to flow through me. The work that has flowed from me being there, programs and projects, public speaking, leading and teaching, is all a byproduct of me just being there. It's what I do now from a place of just being. What Swamiji saw in me was not actually in me. He simply saw the plan. Thank you for listening. That is the end of the 16th chapter. We'll continue reading next time. But what a treasured, rare, and vulnerable insight into the nature of having a guru. How strange and bizarre it is for many of us to comprehend, including, at the time, dear Sadhviji. I'm very grateful that she puts into words many things that others are still afraid to. And for that, I admire her very deeply. Namaste. Thank you, dear Bobby Sue, for the Heart Me Team bracelet and cheer you up earlier. Thank you, dear Michael, for the Heart Me and Rose too. I had a pair of Manjira. Here they are. Thank you all for listening, for being here. And hello to everyone who came in while we were reading. This is how we are to end our live stream tonight. That's a great connection, dear Magdalene. The spirit of a devotee such as Radha in her admiration to Sri Krishna. I would like to end now with a short meditation. Thank you, dear Cassie, for your 10 pumpkins too. Halloween is approaching, isn't it? Baram Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. And Lisa, thank you for your trio of roses. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Tansuela, you point out what a lesson at that time for the realization that her physical body didn't dictate her true worth. Yes. And thank you for finding that lesson in the text and relaying that. So I'd just like to end with a short 5-minute meditation. Tonight, I would like to meditate simply on the concept of inclusivity. So, please relax physically, mentally, spiritually, as through my voice, I take us all who are interested in participating on a journey to explore the subtle and profound concept of inclusivity. You can do this while walking, laying, sitting, or being otherwise engaged in anything else. But if there is anything I ask of you, it is not to follow the literal meanings of words, but rather the vehicle of these words themselves to carry a perspective which broadens our own. We'll just start with 3 deep breaths. I heard something funny recently. Someone said that if you really think that you're independent from this universe, from our nature, just hold your breath and your body will remind you that it is not. We need air to breathe. This air is oxygenated with the oxygen produced by plants and microbes. All of these parts of life have their own network of energy which they rely on in tandem to provide other forms of energy for us. Our body requires food from the soil, from the earth. It requires water, ultimately from our oceans, but that gets evaporated through hydrodynamic processes, that rains back down through clouds into our waterways. And much of that process requires the sun's light. We require the element of fire in some form as heat. All of these things point to an inclusive whole at the level of the elements, at least. The elements of our body are on loan. We do not get to keep them. Just as we had in some form come into acquisition of the elements of our bodies, so too we give them back to Mother Earth. She has given this body to us from her soil, from her oceans, from her heat, from her air, so that we may give her a positive ROI, return of investment. We come into this world with nothing. Our time here is therefore not defined by what we get, but what we give. The purpose in our life is found not in accumulating something that another person does not have, but in giving something that someone else does not have. We can acquire all the riches of the world, all the power, all that is beautiful. But purpose can only be found once we start being part of this world. That we understand ourselves not to be something secondary to nature, but a part of nature. That nature is us. She lives and breathes through us. We are the earth, the sun and moon, and all the stars in this universe come alive. We are that spark of light that exists within everything, waiting to shine. We are that potential that you find within everyone, willing to be brought out. We are not merely this abode of flesh and bones which sleeps, decays, and dies, but that immortal spirit, Lord of the earth and skies. You are that space which permeates the world, through which all things are made possible. We are limited not in the way of lacking, but in the way that an artist makes use of what they have to be able to produce something beautiful. Our challenges in life are not meant to limit us, to make us feel like there is something to hoard and keep exclusive. They are tests of trial and triumph, to be able to awaken a heart of hearts within you, reflected in everyone. We are part of a social memory complex we call life. Just as our body is made up of cells, which each have their own function, but cooperate to form a cohesive whole, so too we are like cells in an organism we call Earth. This Earth too, like a cell in an organism we call our solar system, like a cell in an organism we call our galaxy, like a cell in an organism we call our universe. Every part plays a role, not because it has to or is supposed to, but because of divine ecstasy itself, being that which is expressed through the euphoria of service, by the meaning we render to the greater whole. May we forever, ceaselessly and unwaveringly meditate on the idea of forming this whole. We are the universe, but only together. May we find a home, a refuge, and a solace in our togetherness, in that Sanskrit word they call Sangha. And we'll take 3 more conscious breaths, this time with the reminder that we couldn't breathe without the existence of everything else. Thank you. I said it was 5 minutes. It was 5 minutes, just 2 times in a row. Thank you, dear little moonbeam, for the Heart Me and Team bracelet that you sent. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Cassie, thank you for your trio of pumpkins. Ram Ram. Thank you for attending this meditation. Thank you for attending the Sangha. We will be bringing it to a close. And thank you for providing me with the ability for beauty and light, dear Laurel Ocean. Much love. May this live stream be an offering to the divinity within you. Asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityormamritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. If there was any part of this live stream that was of value to you, I will upload the whole to my Yamsox Lives YouTube channel. There you might get the fullest expression. I also upload the snippets of meditations and readings that we do in case you ever want to catch up on those or want to be included on that. All for free, of course, without any ads. And in the description, I've written a program that chapters each video down to the minute. So if there's a part that really resonates with you, you don't have to scroll through the whole thing. You can just click on the timestamp with a relative chapter title, or the relevant chapter title. Thank you, dear Cassie, for another quintet of pumpkins. Let's go be happy people, shares Anna. Indeed. May you all have a wonderful rest of your present moment. Namaskaram.